I can't hear anything.
10,
Okay.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, known throughout the United States as the original money lady. Since 1976, I have been providing financial news, information, and recommendations that you cannot find any place else. It is again an honor and a privilege to be in your lives, to be in your homes today. And for the next hour, I'm going to be bringing you up to speed as to what is happening in America, in our economy, and globally. So before you say, oh, I can't take it, I just don't want to know. Oh, yes, you do want to know, because ignorance will not get you through this one. You want to be completely aware. You want to have good, sound, accurate financial information. So with that information, you will have a knowledge base to make sound and wise decisions for your family. Very, very important today, viewers, because we have forgotten that it's not just us going through the storm, but it is our families as well. And I don't care who you are in America today or wherever you may be watching this show. Please be aware that we are in a fundamental shift, and things will never, ever, ever be the same. I'm not here as a gloom and doom personality. I am here essentially as an economist, because that is what my credentialing is in and my background has been in for the last 3 decades. And while there are many that have varying opinions, as I share with people, you don't have to like what I say, but watch how it plays out. In 2008, I was on television, and I did say before Lehman, before Bear Stearns blew, I said this is definitely coming because there's nothing to sustain our economy. That was in 2008. Truly, if there had not been a major interference by the government in terms of bailing out the banks, as despicable as it was, how it was done, the grime, if that was not done, if the automobile industry had not been saved, this country would be in shambles today. That is an absolute fact. Now, hear me well, because truly, I, along with you, I was not happy about the banks getting a dime. And the reason I say this is because, you know, they were pigs, and they mismanaged, and they made bad loans because of profit. And again, when we bailed them out because of the urgency of the bailout and the pressure that was meted against our Congress, most of the requirements that should have been in place before making that kind of a commitment of American taxpayer dollars to a private institution were not in place. There was no accountability, period, when we loaned them, or should I say gave them, all of that money. I think it's 700 billion, some astronomical, incredible number. They weren't required to give an accounting of how it was going to be spent or to lend it back into the marketplace, which is the role of banks. Banks are not institutions that are in place to hoard money. And yet, viewers, that is exactly what they have done. Banks are not lending money to American businesses. They're not lending money to American homeowners. They're not lending money, period. But yet, they took American taxpayer revenue to solve their situation. And that just troubles me because, you know, I tell folks, is there any honor among thieves? Well, no, there is no honor among thieves. And so here we are again in the year 2012 facing a bigger pop, because in 2008, it was all about banks and infrastructure. And now in 2012, we're looking at governments, municipalities, and cities all over the world who are finding themselves struggling with no money. So you say to yourself, how does this happen? And today's show is about me trying to open up your eyes so that you can understand not only how it happens, but why it's going to continue to happen under the capitalist form of resource allocation, where a bank is integral to the success of that system. Spain is in trouble. Portugal is in trouble. France is in trouble. In fact, everybody's in trouble except good old Germany. And I venture to say that Miss Merkel, who is the lady in charge in Germany, is not going to be in trouble because the Germans went through 2 world wars and they know what happens when you spend money you do not have. And they already know. So they're not interested in a lot of debt. They're not interested in subsidizing their peers in other countries to bail them out, including Greece, which is history. So what does that have to do with America? Well, viewers, it has a lot to do with America because America holds the largest debt pool, far surpassing Europe and anyone else. We are the debt hogs. Our debt is so frightening. And I say this because as we speak, we keep hearing comments about, well, the government needs to bail us out. Private sector can't meet the demands. And I'm here to tell you from my heart that in the time of FDR, during the Great Depression and his radical moves to jumpstart America through infrastructure and through creating artificial jobs to keep people employed, because here's an insight. Money is currency. Money has to move. When money stops moving, everything grinds to a crunch. And this is where we are today. The banks are not lending money, so money's not moving. People don't have jobs, so they're not spending money. Money's not moving. Private sector doesn't have the necessary capital resources today, so money's not moving. A large percentage of America is struggling to just get through the day. Money's not moving. Globally, countries are in debt and falling out of the game. Money's not moving. In the United States, we now have municipalities filing bankruptcy because they're not bringing in enough revenues, because there are not enough people working, because there's not enough of a fluid tax base. Money's not moving. So I bring this to your attention because money is currency. It's like a river. It's got to move. In the field of economics, we call it a multiplier effect. That is the term that our industry uses. And they use this term because for every job that you create, people are going to get a salary. They're going to use the money to buy food, to pay for things, and money is now going to begin to move. The faster money moves, the more a nation grows. The slower money moves, the slower a nation grows. So we all know under traditional economic theory, that's Keynesian theory for those of you that are academicians, that is the premise. Money has to move, and money's got to move fast, or else you're going to have some very real problems in what you're dealing with today. So here we are today. Here we are today. And the last time I talked to you openly about this, I said very categorically that the vast majority of people today are confused. They're troubled about the economy. They feel bombarded by the media. They feel bullied by salespeople. They are bewildered by the million things they need to know to survive in this financial jungle. And viewers, it is a jungle. You don't think it's a jungle? Wander out here without an understanding and watch a lion eat you for dinner, or watch another crazy animal appear from nowhere and decimate your world. And over the last 5 years, as you know, since the 2008 debacle involving Bear Stearns, which acknowledged that their portfolio was garbage, and Lehman, which we threw up under the bus in favor of a French corporation, which I can't even get into because that's just too bizarre. I can't believe we would let Lehman Bank Incidentally, I worked for Lehman Bank at one time. We would let Lehman Bank, an international icon that had sold our crappy paper all over the world to all these different nation states, we would let Lehman Bank go under and let all those countries that had bought that garbage paper just make it the best way they can. Not good. But bottom line, after this happened, and this huge loan that we made, I shouldn't call it a loan because it was a gift to the banking industry with the sign-off of the American people. We took money that we needed. Folks, this is how it went down. Let me just cut it to you straight. You want to know why we don't have any money? Because we took tax revenue money and gave it to that private institution with no terms, no repayment conditions, no accountability. So what did we do now that we're short $700 billion into an institution that basically is in business to lend money and now won't? At least the automobile industry provided jobs with their money and their loans. But the banks didn't do anything. They sat back and said, we're going to do business with each other. And guess what? They did. But in making those loans into European countries and other banks, now American bankers are holding the bag. The big five. The big five. Yeah, the big five. So we took the $700 billion and we gave it to a private institution. When you talk about socialism, what is that? Hello. When people say, I don't believe in socialism, then demand your money back, because that is exactly what you did. You took private sector's problems and you made them your own. And as a result, that's $700 billion that left our economy. That's tax revenues. That's money that was being brought in from our work. You know, everybody pays taxes. Where do the taxes go? The primary collector of taxes is the federal government, followed by your state, county, municipality. But the federal government is the largest collector of revenues from taxes. So what happens when you take that huge sum of money and go plop into a private sector enterprise? Well, viewers, you don't even have to be an economist or even a bright person to know that when you take that kind of money out, and we have bills to pay. The federal government operates like all the rest of us. You know, you get money in, you got to pay money out. They have employees, they pay out Social Security, they pay out Social Security disability, workman's comp, unemployment, on, and food stamps, all this money. And guess what we had to do? We had to go out and borrow money to pay our bills, because we did this. Now the argument could be rendered, well, if we didn't do it, they would have collapsed and then we'd all be in trouble. You don't think we're in trouble now? Oh, come on. You couldn't be serious. You know we're in trouble because we couldn't make them lend to bail us out. They weren't willing to negotiate on mortgage modifications so that people could keep their homes since they lost their jobs, and they weren't willing to reconsider modification on interest rates. I mean, come on, folks. You know, you're a pig, okay, guys? Seriously. They weren't willing to help people to retain their homes, causing neighborhood collapse, causing real estate blowouts. The number of properties is so pathetic now. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. And before you sit back and say, well, I think we've mastered the foreclosure problem, I'm going to say to you, are you kidding me? There are more homes going into foreclosure now than then. It's just that it's no longer a topic of conversation. But it doesn't mean that devastation is not occurring. So we've got all this stuff going on, and people are stressed, people are worried, and they're concerned. And they're concerned because personally it impacts on each and every one of us. Do not think that I am exempt. Please. I made some major moves almost 2 years ago to radically downsize. Children gone, didn't need all that space, didn't need the headache, and equity values had plummeted. So I'm like, I want it out. And you know what? A house can't feed you, viewers. It's pretty to look at, but a house, and particularly a big house, requires maintenance, upkeep, Things break down in houses. And I just recognize that one of the things I don't want to be in a depression is I don't want to be saddled with a huge house and debt, because that's not the plan when you're facing the times that we're in today. So I made a shift, and including downsizing into a very simple, affordable little car, paid off, done, got out of my big fat Lexus and moved on. And you're going to have to do the same. For real. You're going to have to do the same. You cannot think that other people are going to save you when they can't save themselves. But I wanted to share with you why we're in this predicament, just kind of an overview. Because in my field, there's a macroeconomic perspective, which is the big picture, which is individual buying decisions have a big impact. And while you may be doing, making moves as a person, your moves, along with the moves of millions of other people, have impact, and that's known as macroeconomics. But there's also microeconomics, which has to do with you and how you and your family make your moves. Are you living within your means? Are you keeping your bills paid? What are you doing to make a change? And we've talked about this in previous programs, but I want to re-emphasize this again because this thing is in full motion now. Like I said, we're not looking at banks, we're now looking at governments. Incidentally, the banking thing has not resolved itself because the banks are right back into mortgage-backed securities and derivatives again. The very things they said they would not do again, they're back to it again. And with the same outcome. I tell them, you just can't stop betting. You just cannot. You're like a drunk man driving. You cannot seem to get out of this mindset. Now, before you say, God, she's hard on banks, I'm not hard on the local branch manager. They work for this system. They work a job just like other people. But I am saying to you that the people at the top, your capitalists, your money makers, your money movers, these are your billionaires and your trillionaires that are moving large trunks of money all over at all times. They don't care anything about you. And if you think they do, you're on some form of medication. Are you smoking something really funny? Are you drinking something really crazy? These people, their world is a different world. And I'm saying to you this because this is a world that I am very, very familiar with and do understand. That's why I respect them so very little. They have all the money, but they have lost their compassion for humans and the fact that every human being on earth is God ordained to dignity. When you go into other countries and you see how these billionaires and these mega capitalists have brought devastation and destruction into these other countries where they've oozed out major profits and at the expense of the people. And this is the truth. It is not acceptable for the majority of the world to go to bed hungry. Not today. Not when we have resources. And this is a challenge I give to the super rich. What the heck are you going to do with all that money? It's paper. If it's U.S. dollars, it's not backed by anything anyway, except the good faith and full credit of the American people, which we know is kind of shaky right now. But my challenge to all of these so-called super rich, super wealthy people is, what are you going to do with all that money? What are you going to do with it? Because of the power of compounding, viewers, they're never going to be penniless. Ever. Not possible. They could live on the interest and be super rich. So rather than looking at acquisitions in terms of how can people benefit, they look at it as what's in it for me. And that to me is troubling, and it really, really, really smells evil if you want to just be blunt about it. It just does, because there is no balance here. When you're looking at the majority of our country suffering, and before some of you get on your high hat and say, well, they need to work, they don't need to be at home, I'm going to sit up here and tell you, how can you work when you cannot find a job? How can you work when the economy is not producing jobs? When the private sector is busily consolidating and repositioning globally into cheap pay locations. We call it outsourcing. How's a person going to maintain employment in that environment? And I say this very seriously because until we have oh, I got it, you're going to continue to make these silly statements. Many people can't find jobs because there aren't any. The U.S. has had a massive outflux of jobs for years. Ross Perot spoke to it very specifically. And truthfully, he was right years ago. Remember NAFTA? You remember Ross Perot, who was the Texas guy that was real rich, and he was kind of like, ooh. But to his credit, he knew, because he was one of those guys. And he told us, you do that, you're done. And of course, we did. Thank you, Bill Clinton. We really needed that. So here we are today. Your kids can't get jobs. They got all this debt. And you're struggling. And I just got a word from a friend of mine that many corporations are now eliminating vacation. Can you believe that? Like you love your job so much that you want to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They are eliminating vacations, which is if you want to keep your job, you just are going to work. Now, I'm not trying to be extreme, but as I told my friend, I said, you know what? The elimination of vacations may be the straw that broke the back, because at the point, people can't get any relief from their job 2 weeks a year somewhere. That's a problem, okay? That's a problem. So I'm just letting you know these subtleties are taking place. We all know that everybody is stressed and pressed out, but the purpose of the power of money is to give you, again, the information so that you can build a sound knowledge base to make wise decisions for you and your family. Got it? You and your family, because it is more than you who in this day and time in history. So I want to share with you just some things. As I said earlier, and I'm going to repeat again, that the issue today, the major issue today confronting the world system is not the economy. That's a symptom. The major move that history is going to record is that everybody's getting older, and that the baby boomers are causing these spasms in the United States, and that the aging of the world population is causing spasms all over the world. The baby boomers, which were all those children that were born after World War II up into 1959, are responsible for the greatest spending spree that the United States has ever experienced. First thing, and I'm a baby boomer, first thing, our parents who came out of World War II, hardworking people, rugged people, were determined that their children were going to have more and better. Admirable qualities, admirable. But it came into a venue called entitlement. So the baby boomer generation is the generation of the entitled, where they actually feel that they're entitled to the things that they have and entitled to a better quality of life. Now, I'm not here to debate the validity of that mindset. I'm just simply saying to you that because of that entitlement consciousness, baby boomers spent and they bought everything. Bought everything. And through their mindset and their numbers, because this was the largest concentration of adults going into the marketplace. They got jobs, they created jobs, and they spent money. They bought houses, they bought cars, not just any car, they bought nice cars. And the day of one car, are you kidding me? 3 cars, one for the husband, one for the wife, one for each of the children. So some houses look like a parking lot, because if you have 4 children and a wife and yourself, that's 6 people with cars, all of them parked in the yard. So as I share with people, all of these things took place as a part of that culture of entitlement which the baby boomers brought. So they bought big houses, they did jacuzzis, they partied, they traveled, they used credit cards. Credit cards were not even around 20 years ago. But because of the spending habits and because of the propensity to want more and more and more, baby boomers spent more and more and more for they and them. So I'm entitled to live better. I'm entitled to travel. I'm entitled to buy that Louis Vuitton bag that I cannot afford. I'm entitled to do these things because that's just what I want to do. And you know what? That's just what they did. But funny thing happened. The same group that pushed America into a consumption craze, because it is the consumer viewers that created this powerful economy this time around. It was not the private sector, it was the American consumer. It's baby boomers. They were pushing this stuff. Well, guess what? My group is now retiring. They're getting old. Some of them are just old. And they're out of here. And with them is all of that purchasing power because number one, when you're older, you're not going to be buying a 5-bedroom home. You're not going to be spending all your money on luxuries. You're going to be thinking about retiring and getting older. Also, as you get older, you begin to have health challenges, health issues, all kinds of things begin to emerge because the body is not a machine. It does break down and sometimes you can't repair it. So again, this huge mass of people known as baby boomers are now moving out of the marketplace. And this is major. Hear me. This is major because along with the baby boomers moving out of the market is the tax base. Because when you're retired, you're not making any money. You're living off of your savings. You're on Social Security. You may have some other part-time jobs, but nothing to compare with the kind of money that you were pushing into that system. And again, what I said, money's got to move. And when you're spending money, money's moving. You're buying cars, you're buying houses, you're buying all the things that you want to do. Money's moving. Boom. Stop. They don't have money to move because they're now thinking about how am I going to take care of myself. They're out of the market. Money is scarce and tight. And the government's screaming, oh my God, tax revenues are shorting because the people that have been working, paying into taxes are no longer doing that. They're now recipients. So you have a situation where the government, because they are ratcheted up for a time when all these services were required, wanted, and needed. And they've got lots of employees and they've got lots of overhead and they got lots of stuff. And now all of a sudden the people that were funding this are retiring and moving out of the system. Huge numbers of people. I won't even talk about Europe. Huge numbers of people are leaving this system. The impact is severe. Because let me tell you something, viewers, the government is not going to stop taxing you. You know why? Because they need the money. And it's just easier to tax those who are working. It's easier to pull money from people that are dead, known as estate tax. It's easy. It's easy. And they're not going to stop. And as I share with people, if you feel like you don't have any money, it's probably because a large amount of your money is going to pay taxes. As I share with people, this is always a funny little chart I read, but I'm going to read it to you because it's funny. But here are the taxes that we're paying right now. If you feel like you don't have any money, you don't. Federal income tax, Social Security tax, state tax, city tax, county tax, property tax, school tax, sales tax, estate tax, gasoline tax, water tax, sewer tax, business tax, airport tax, telephone tax, license tax, hotel tax, cable TV tax, we know about that, user tax, unemployment tax, right, you got to pay a tax on your unemployment check. cigarette tax, corporate income tax, accounts receivable tax, inventory tax, marriage license tax. Yeah, they tax you to get married. Liquor tax, building permit tax, Medicare tax, fishing license tax, real estate tax, food license tax, fuel permit tax, hunting license tax, inheritance tax, road usage tax for truckers, luxury tax, recreational vehicle tax, utility tax, septic permit tax, well permit tax, road toll booth tax, vehicle sales tax, workman's compensation tax, trailer reg tax, watercraft registration tax, long-term capital gains tax, short-term capital gains tax, telephone federal excise tax, telephone state and local tax, telephone usage charge tax, telephone federal universal service fee tax, telephone federal state and local surcharge tax, telephone recurring charges tax, tax on gas and energy, electric tax, heating oil tax. My God! Incidentally, most of this tax is on an after-tax basis, meaning you're paying taxes out with the money that you get after you've paid the federal government and your Social Security and Medicare. This is all after government extraction tax. And then you wonder why you don't have any money for those of you that are working. Not funny. But I'm here to tell you that the government is not going to stop taxing. Don't believe the politicians. When you're broke, the most efficient method of extraction is through taxes. Okay, because the government has to keep going. Now, my challenge is, if you don't bring in enough taxes, then you have to go into the marketplace and borrow money. And this is what we're dealing today. We are out here big time borrowing money. But let me share with you, it's not the Chinese that hold the largest percent of U.S. debt. Are you kidding me? It's not the Chinese. It's the American people. We own the debt. You say it's worthless? Well, we are the largest holders of U.S. debt, known as treasuries, etc. The American people, through our banks, through our pension funds, through our personal holdings, etc. We believe in our country and we buy this stuff. Okay? So this is why I share with people, don't expect the government to stop printing money. Are you kidding me? Why should they? It's the American people holding the bag. Don't expect the Fed to operate in a responsible way because they're only doing what they know to do, which is if we can keep printing that money, maybe the money will circulate. Remember, currency has to move. And the truth of the matter is all that money printing is going to impact us through, again, major issues globally. We're going to find that our dollar is worth less and less. But you know what? I'm of the opinion, I know this sounds extremely radical, so other economists don't throw rocks at me. But I propose this. Since our cities, we got 4 major cities that filed bankruptcy because they didn't have enough money. And there's a bunch of other cities, if they had courage, including Detroit, they filed bankruptcy because they're not bringing in enough money to pay their people. Also, because they cannot fund their pension plans. And I know that's horrible, because it is. You work all your life, and then all of a sudden, you find out that you don't have any pension money coming. But the reality is this. This is a strategy. This is a move for the times. If cities can file bankruptcy because they're not bringing in any money, and reorganize their assets, which is what bankruptcy does allow you to do. What about the possibility of the United States filing bankruptcy? We're broke anyway. So at least we would have an opportunity to reorganize our debt and to begin to settle up on our creditor accounts in a wise way. Now, I know you're screaming in the background, we're not filing bankruptcy. Well, you know what? If our credit rating keeps going down the toilet because we cannot pay our bills, then it's like anybody else in a household situation. And frankly, in private practice, I've had to advise people, your best option is to file bankruptcy and a fresh start. And yes, it is painful, and yes, it is unfair, but you can't pay your bills. And therefore, you need to consider that as an option. If you don't have a job, if you can't stay on top, then why not do what other people do and try to get back on your feet in a fresh way? So again, I'm putting that out there. I talked about it on Facebook, And a lot of people didn't know that the American people, through our pensions and personal accounts, banks, etc., were the largest holder of our federal debt. And this is why I share with people: you think they're going to stop printing money? Why would they? You're holding the bag. So maybe, and this may sound radical, but maybe since we're holding all the debt, and since nobody seems to like us much anyway, maybe we need to just kind of do business with each other. Maybe we need to revisit bartering. Maybe we need to revisit having business models where we take care of each other. Maybe we need to stop spending all our money on defense and entitlement. And maybe we need to come back to the sobering reality that debt will kill you every time. Seriously, debt will do it to you every time. Can't get around it. It simply will. So what is the answer for you? I'm going to say to all of you, I have some specific recommendations that you can begin to implement right now. First thing, recognize that change is here. I talked about this in an earlier show. Change is here. You cannot look back. You can only move forward. The back is nothing but a historical account. You have to position yourself to survive. Many of you have made bad decisions based upon bad information. Many of you did not understand that being in debt is a terrible thing. And I could hear some of you investors out there saying, yeah, but I leveraged my real estate. Well, you can't get out of the stuff now, can you? You owe the bank, your tenants are crazy, and you've got this monthly debt. And frankly, debt never works out because interest is always compounding and interest is always accumulating. It just is. So I will say to all of you, as we talk today, that your first and greatest priority is to reposition yourselves so as to not be in debt. I'm serious. The Bible talks about debt. And I'm telling you, as an advisor and an economist, that you cannot do debt. So you say, how do I get out of debt? Well, you can sell things. You can access internet. You can do Etsy. You can do Craigslist. You can do things to get out of debt. If you have skills, you can begin to leverage your skills to create venue and income for you to get out of debt. Very simple. You can make it a family piece, and your children may have incredible ideas on what you need to do. For those of you that are adamant about college, maybe you need to rethink college, because college is not fun if you are laden with debt. Ask the average student out here who's come out of college with credentials, etc., and they cannot get a good job. They get a job, but it's not a good job where they can pay off their debt. I talked to a gentleman not too long ago who went to a very prominent school, and he said at 31 he still has almost $46,000 in debt to pay. So he will be paying, that's a house, and he is not making that kind of income. But he's paying that debt. And he said to me, you know, I really wonder, retrospectively, if I couldn't have been an auto mechanic and made more money. And my response to him was, you definitely would have made more money because high-end cars are usually driven by wealthy people. And you would have found yourself making a lot of money. Again, doesn't seem like an attractive industry, but nonetheless, you would not have been laden with that kind of debt. So that is just an example of what I'm talking about today as we move forward. And for you parents who are looking at college and other things for your children, recognize that we're in a changing environment and that things are different. Things are different. I don't know if I could, in today's environment, recommend that my children do that. My oldest child, she did not go to college. She went into the military, and then she came out with her passion was entertainment, and she's now a very successful international booking agent. She experienced some tough years, as most people in business do, but now she's got her groove on, as the young people say, and she's doing her thing. My other two children did go to college. Lots of bills, lots of responsibility, and I don't know if I will ever get a return on my investment, okay? Other than the good feelings that they went to college. But again, changing paradigms. If your child is not particularly bright and scholarship oriented, then maybe you need to rethink that and not put yourself in harm's way. Because going into debt for your children, while it might sound admirable, if you do not have the financial resources that will sustain you during retirement, you may find yourself not just taking care of yourself, but your children when they cannot find jobs. That's not funny. It is not funny. And on the subject of jobs and what are we going to do, I want to applaud the state of Ohio's efforts to deal with the issue of incarceration. And the fact that in the community I live in, which is Hamilton County, Southern Ohio, highest incarceration rate in the state of Ohio, exceeding Cuyahoga County, Montgomery County, everything. I'm like 1/3 of our men have been incarcerated from everything from marijuana to resisting arrest. Once you have a record, you're done because employers cannot hire you. And before you say, but that's discriminatory, then you need to point the finger at the insurance companies, because the insurance companies will not deal with business liability for that company if they have people in their premises that are ex-felons and that type of thing. So the state of Ohio, it's my understanding, is trying to address this with trying to prevent and to eliminate that awful, awful situation on the lives of so many men and increasingly women in this system. But you know what I think, and this is just a personal opinion, the timing couldn't be worse. They come out of an institution and they cannot get a job. We've got military people, literally millions of military people, men and women, who are back from the war who cannot get jobs. They don't have criminal records. They don't have anything. They simply cannot get a job because jobs are not available. Because remember what I said, currency has to flow, and when banks aren't lending, currency is tight, and businesses are not going to expand if they do not feel that there's going to be people to buy their products. That is logical. Why would you, please don't quote the, if I build it, they will come. That's not the business model. Business people are the most conservative people. I'm a businesswoman. I do not like to spend money. I mean, it has to be cost justified. I have to look at projections. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm not spending any money in a depression. I need to see where things are going before I do that. So you've got a situation where now they're talking about allowing ex-felons and criminals to enter into the labor force at the worst time in history. So I guess something is better than nothing. But I'm saying to you, in terms of priorities, I would like to see a real life effort to hire veterans who are coming back from the war so that they do not roll out like the Vietnam veterans who were mangled and messed up and psychologically broken, so many of them. I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see banks get off the money that we gave you. Boom. Dumb. And I'd like to see you lend money in America at low interest rates, because we didn't charge you anything to jumpstart our economy, to get this thing going. I'm talking to you guys at the top that sit in your wonderful limousine-driven black cars, Mercedes probably, and are not concerned about what is happening in America. America is hurting. And while you may be at the Champs-Élysées, or you may be in Shanghai or in other provinces with your wealth, you recognize that the American people are hurting. We're scared. We don't know where we're going to go. We can't look to the government because politicians have shown us that it's just worthless on so many levels. We're looking to private sector, but you can't grow if you can't get money. That's small business people. I'm so tired of them talking about small business is the basis of this country. Yes, it is, but they have to depend upon banks to allow them to grow. and to expand, and they can't get the necessary loans that they need. Or the bank is accelerating the loan, which I'm hearing increasingly. The bank's like, oh, I don't like your balance sheet, so I think I want to call the note due. Right. So you're going to kick a man when he's down. Not good. I need us to zoom around and to look at where the problem really is. And I need us to begin to make a change. We cannot continue to tax the American people into oblivion, the government. And you can say, oh, we need to change the tax code. You can change whatever tax code you want to change. But I can assure you, guarantee you, that corporations have an entire bevy of attorneys who are committed to helping them to pay no money. If it means moving their money offshore, if it means moving their money into Switzerland, if it means them making acquisitions, even setting their corporate offices into other countries, they're willing to do that because it's business, and that's what they're interested in. Again, the times are before us, and they're challenging times. And I don't have any good advice other than get out of debt, consolidate your resources. That's right. Look at how you're going to fare in the days ahead, because it's going to be some bumpy days ahead. This is not going to get any better anytime soon. It took 30 years for us to get to this, okay? You can't possibly think we're going to cruise out of this in a year or two. It's going to be a long ride. But let me give you the positive upside of all of this, and this is where I get excited. You now have an opportunity. As values collapse, and they are, you now, for those of you that have been saving and are prudent, you're going to find that you're going to be able to do lots of things with the money you have accumulated. You're going to actually be able to invest in companies who are doing great in this scenario. Not everybody's doing bad. There are companies that are positioned right now to ride this thing out. These are companies that don't have any debt, that have very strong management, and a lot of them are not even well known. But you can Google, input the parameters I just gave you, look at dividends, look at cash rich, and see what you come up with and begin the research. Because there are companies that will get through this. Companies that will not get through this are companies that have a lot of debt, that leveraged, that did not anticipate where we are today. And therefore, here we are. Not good. But for those of you that can't stay away from the stock market, and I must tell you, it's brutal out here, and it's going to get worse. It is, because there's nothing to support the growth in the stock market. Remember, the baby boomers are leaving, and they're taking their money out of the market. They're putting their money into conservative, predictable investments like annuities, etc., that guarantee their income, that guarantee their principal. They're not going to be playing ball at 80 years old, 70, or even 60. It's too scary. They don't want to do that. So the market, just because of that move alone, is going to be choppy. You've got a lot of trading activity going from market players that think that the Fed is going to bail us out. And Ben Bernanke, and God bless his soul, because I would not like to be the head of the Fed at this time in history. But Ben Bernanke came and spoke as he always does. And his remarks were predictably bland. Because what's he going to say? We're going to print some more money? Well, that's done over with. The money printing business is not doing anything. Are we going to lower interest rates any lower? Well, how low is low? Anybody that has CDs knows that 1% is not a lot of money. So if the Fed's charging its bank members a half of 1%, quarter of 1%, to try to stimulate them to borrow, then they're not going to borrow. The American taxpayer gave them all the money. They don't need the money. They're fine. They got a ton of money. What are you going to do about us? And truthfully, the Federal Reserve, which handles monetary policy in the United States, that is basically printing money, lending money, etc., they're at their wits' end. They have called our growth projections, in so many terms, dismal, which means that there's not going to be a whole lot of performance and productivity. And he doesn't have any answers. So monetary policy, nah. Flip over on the other side. Fiscal policy, what is Congress prepared to do? Well, we got two camps right now. We've got the current administration that says we need to spend more. Government must do more. And it's without a doubt the stimulus helped with people working. And then we have another camp that says private sector has to run with it. And frankly, I don't know who's right, because the tendency of private sector is always going to be to maximize profits at anybody's expense. This is a capitalist model. And I say this all the time because the capitalist model promulgates the great efficient man who is out here accumulating and profiting for his own. Maybe the American people need to have an open conversation about where this country is, without all the fluff and all that. But maybe we really need to have a conversation about what happened, why we have strayed so far from our original precepts and goals. Why are we here today in this dilemma? Maybe we need to look at those things. And I say this as time is just about up for the show, that maybe you and your family need to have this conversation. What will happen to you if you woke up tomorrow and found out your pension plan was history? Woo! Don't think that can happen. It just happened. I had a situation, I won't quote names, where a woman had worked for a nonprofit for 35 years, and they ran out of money. And she discovered, much to her horror, that she had no pension plan. She also found out, because nonprofits don't contribute into unemployment, that she didn't have an unemployment plan either. So at 35 years of work, older woman, she had not only no unemployment, but she had no retirement. She is now 62, and she's pulling off of the retirement from before she went to work for the nonprofit. You don't think that's troubling to me? That's troubling to me. Do you know who nonprofits are? Nonprofits are more than your big foundations and your hospitals. They are churches. They are a ton of nonprofit organizations out here and social service agencies. So I said to her, I said, this is about the conversation we have to have. Why would an agency committed to helping people have you work there for 35 years, and at the end of your life, you have nothing? That is not funny. That is disturbing to me. I don't like that. That's not American. That is squirrely, and that's mean. But these are the things that are happening all around us that nobody wants to talk about. Everybody says, well, I don't want people in my business. Your business is out here, and it's sounding loud, and it's singing clear. And I'm just simply saying to you, as the money lady, my compassion and my concern is for your financial stability and well-being, and a future that is bright for our children and our grandchildren. This is unconscionable to leave them with the kind of debt that we are sticking them with. Enough. Stop. End of story. We need to do better. So my challenge to you today, as I conclude today's segment of The Power of Money, Michelle Graves, is always keeping it real, keeping it straight, not cutting corners, not playing with anybody, just telling you the way I feel you. I understand. I know what you're going through. I know if you have children, it's rough and tough. I know if you're a single parent, it's rough and it's tough. I know that if you're in a job where orders are not coming in, you're getting nervous. But I'm going to tell you, keep hope alive. Do not allow depression to come on you. Do not allow discouragement to come on you. Look within your internal resources and begin to see, what can I do to change my story? Rally your family around you as a family to begin to look at what the family can do differently. We eat too much food and we eat bad food. That's why Americans are so obese. We do. We eat bad food and we eat too much food. Change your eating parameters. Go to farmers markets. Grow your own food like me. Okay? Right. It's fresh, it's clean, and it's mine. Make some changes in your life thinking, your lifestyle, and how you live your life. Love your families. Love your children. Love people. When you do these things, you will find that your life will begin to change its character, and that you will find that you can get through this. But I want to compel you again, as American people, we better have the conversation, because 2012 and 2013 are going to be doozy years. And the things I talked to you about today, remember currency. Remember I said the banks must lend. I don't know how to tell them to lend. They didn't lend. People have bad credit now, problems. But something has to give. We need a new model. FDR birthed out a new model. We're going to need a new model to get us through this one. I'm confident the American people will do it, because we are an amazing people. We just are. We'll do it if nobody else does it. So I'm confident that we can get it done. And I thank you again for allowing me to be a part of your world on today's Power of Money. Again, I'm Michelle Graves, blessing you, sending you great hope, lots of love. Kiss those kids, and I'll see you the next time. Don't forget to watch me on YouTube if you have not seen any of my shows. Michelle Graves, The Power of Money, on YouTube. You take care. Goodbye. Whew. How was it?
That's good.
Okay. Oh, man. I didn't get into a lot of this stuff. I was so nervous about all this accident stuff. I came up, trying to get here. We had accidents in Cincinnati. And then to wind up here, the same stuff.